Basin Spring is a spring around which Eureka Springs developed, and it is still the heart of town. Some believe it is the fountain of youth sought by early Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon. Native American Indian tribes knew of the magic healing springs. It was supposed by many tribes that the spirit of the great medicine man hovered around the spring, so it was a place of peace. They carved a stone basin to catch the flow, which is still in place under the round fountain in the center of the park. The local discoverer of the healing qualities of the spring was Dr. Alva Jackson from Berryville, a town 12 miles east of here. He wrote, "In 1857, I was hunting bear with my dogs, who ran a panther into a hole in the cliff, around 30 yards above the spring. There were large rocks in the hole. I could not get out of there without help. So I returned home, but came back next morning with my son William and 7 others. My son had sore eyes at the time, therefore I advised him to wash his eyes in the spring. He did so some 3 times. The next morning his eyes were completely cured, and this convinced me that there was medical virtue in the water. I went back to further examine the spring. When I had cleansed and washed the basin out and examined it thoroughly, I felt fully satisfied that I had found it. The Indian healing springs of legend." Dr. Jackson bottled and sold the spring water as Dr. Jackson's Eye Water. During the Civil War, Dr. Jackson set up a makeshift hospital near the spring where he treated those wounded at the Battle of Pea Ridge and area skirmishes. In May of 1879, Dr. Jackson returned with his friend, Judge Levi Best Saunders, a man of influence from Berryville, who suffered from a skin infection. Judge Saunders followed Dr. Jackson's advice, bathed in the spring water, and within 10 weeks he was cured. He told everyone of his cure, who told everyone else, and before long the area was filled with invalids seeking to be healed. Remember, this was a mountain wilderness with only a few rough logging and hunting trails leading to the spring. They came on foot, horseback, in covered wagons, into the woods. They soon discovered many other springs near and not so near, about 65 in all. By July 4th, people gathered at the spring to form a town which was named Eureka Springs, from the Greek word meaning, "I have found it." The town continued to grow and was officially incorporated on February 14th, 1880. The rapid growth of the town was noted by local hunter John Gaskins, who wrote, "I've been hunting bear in these Ozark Mountains for a very long time. In 1893, I was there every day, watching and wondering. The people crowded around the basin spring, dipping in the water that poured over the rock into the little basin, one waiting for another. I would watch for hours, wondering how it could be that I had used the waters for so long, and now to see crowds gathered there for the cure of all kinds of all diseases. Many who were not able to walk would use the water and would be able soon to climb the mountains, at that time steep and rugged and without roads. In those days, the main pastimes of health-seeking visitors was to walk over the hills from spring to spring, chatting with everyone they met. It was said, 'There are no strangers at the springs.' They carried their walking sticks and tied tin cups to their belts to drink the water of every spring they visited. Basin Spring Park and its neighbors have changed over the years. Basin Spring water was originally the focus. Originally, it flowed into the rough stone-hewn basin by Native Americans. Then it flowed through pipes into barrels, and then into a fountain. In early days, the water was delivered door to door by wagon and shipped all over the U.S. on the Frisco Railroad. Major improvements began in 1890 with the construction of retaining walls and benches. In early days, a long stairway led up the mountain to Eureka Street above. The curved bandshell was built in 1915, replacing a smaller gazebo structure on north end of the park, which has since been reconstructed. The Southern Hotel stood on the south side above the park. Built in 1880, it was enlarged to 100 rooms by 1885. Surviving the four great fires, it too burned in 1933. The tiny building next to the Southern Hotel evolved into the current home on the same site. The current Balm of Life Basin Spring arch sign was a 125th year birthday gift from the Eureka Springs Rotary Club to the community. A similar sign once covered the Basin Spring in the 1880s. Four major fires between 1883 and 1892 destroyed most of the early wooden structures in Eureka Springs, including those around Basin Spring Park. The elegant Perry House, which is where the Basin Park Hotel is now located, was built in 1881. It burned in 1890, and the land was vacant for 15 years until it was built in 1905. This was the last of the great Eureka Springs downtown hotels to be built. Across from the hotel, the Flatiron Building is now in its fourth reincarnation. This site has seen several wedge-shaped buildings destroyed by fire and then rebuilt. The 1880 Flatiron escaped the 1888 fire that burned the rest of the block, but it was lost in the 1890 fire that took the Perry House. It was rebuilt in 1890, but it too burned. The years when there was no building gave the corner a totally different look. The current Flatiron Building was built in 1989 based on photographs of the 1890 building.